Welcome to Built to Win, the podcast created to help you level up your business game by developing a success mindset that's made for the long run. In this episode, How Your Personal Philosophy Determines Results, Dave Fleming sits down with Jeff Olson, founder and CEO of Neora and best-selling author of The Slight Edge, to explore the importance of having a personal philosophy. Listen as Jeff explains how to create your philosophy and how it will guide you on the road to personal and professional accomplishments.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Built to Win podcast. We are here today to have a really kind of an open discussion about philosophy. And we are joined by our co-founder of this podcast and the founder and CEO of Neora, Mr. Jeff Olson, also the author of best-selling Slight Edge. Built to Win is kind of based on the Slight Edge. And we would really encourage you, if you're new to this podcast and this is the first time you're joining us, really encourage you to go back and listen to some of the previous episodes. We've got some incredible content. We've got some incredible response to what we're doing here. We're going to dive in today to some other things. We're going to be talking about philosophy and how your personal philosophy affects your life, what it brings into your life, maybe what it excludes from your life, and ultimately how your personal philosophy helps you accomplish what you want to get out of life. So, Jeff, it is always a pleasure to have you with us, and thanks for joining us. I'm really excited to talk about this.
Good. It's great to be here, Dave, and welcome to all of you out there. Yes, we are excited about Built to Win, a podcast. I feel like we've gotten off to a great start. I think it's based because it's really kind of an organic communication that comes from people who, from their experiences and from different backgrounds and experiences. And so it is resonating, and that's good. And that's all this is about. We want to share some value and share with everybody. So I'm excited here just as well, Dave, and I'm really excited to talk about philosophy because for me, it's a cornerstone to success. I do not really know how you can be truly successful without really having an awareness of your philosophy. So for me, it's a great topic. It's something that I discovered a long time ago, and it's had profound effects on my life because I made it something that I worked on versus something that existed. And there's a big difference. If you be the philosophy that just exists, because that is kind of like society manifests it for you versus the philosophies in life that you create, which become your guiding light. So we'll be talking about that. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I'm already excited about it because we're talking about things that really matter. I think that people, and I think we'll talk through that on this episode, but let's start with the basics because I think especially for our newer listeners, when we talk about philosophy and our personal philosophy and what it is, help us understand what is it that you mean by that? What is that? Let's start with the what. What is a philosophy that we're talking about?
Well, you look up philosophy, there's a lot of different definitions. If you talk to a lot of people, they'll have their own version of it, but there are some core elements that always exist and shine through, and that are it. First of all, a lot of people don't give it the attention that it deserves. They kind of see it as that philosophical thing over there in the corner, that they don't see it as truly a working part of your life. And all of philosophy is, it's to a certain degree, it's an outlook on life more than anything else. And it's basically based upon the things you know, the things you've learned, and how you hold those. That's a big part of this. We'll talk about that. How you hold something you've learned, then the next thing, how it affects what you do. Now, if you go and you look up the philosophy, there's a number of different versions, but here's a good one that I'll share with you. It's a theory or attitude held by a person or an organization that acts as a guiding principle for behavior. So there's a simple definition. What was really funny to me, they did an example of a philosophy, and they would go down a negative philosophy. It's just like psychology. We have that in this podcast. We've talked about Live Happy, the podcast that we have, driven by the Built to Win group, and it's a very successful podcast you've been gone to called the Live Happy podcast. And that was born about 1998 when Dr. Marty Seligman, who was the head of the psychology department, head of Penn University, been doing it for about 4 decades, spoke to everybody and said, hey, why do we not have positive psychology? Why are we always at the bottom of the hill trying to fix the broken person versus being at the top of the hill, taking a good person, making greater? And he birthed positive psychology. But even since then, And if you look at 17 books written on psychology, 16 will be negative, one will be positive. Okay. So, the forces are pretty negative. And so I say that to say this. So even here, when going to very high, a reputable place to look up what is a philosophy, and it says, a theory or attitude held by a person or an organization that acts as a guiding principle for behavior. And here's their example: don't expect anything, and you won't be disappointed. Great. A negative philosophy. So,
yeah.
So the point I'm trying to make, just like in psychology, most of it leans to the negative side because it's aiming towards a thing you have in your brain called your reticulator. It's a part of your brain that focuses on negative, and it's way more powerful than the part of your brain that focuses on positive. And you have to really pay attention to that. Same thing in philosophy. If you don't consciously create positive philosophies in your life, you will end up with negative philosophies because of the downward force that goes on in society. And so you'll find yourself having, as it says, a theory or an attitude held by you as a person or your organization, and it acts as a guiding principle for behavior. So a very critical thing to understand: your philosophies, again, it's everything you know, how you hold it, and it affects what you do. But what I want to make sure everyone understands, it's important that you become the gateway to the philosophies that you allow to live in your mind. And I'll talk about that more, because those are the things that it says becomes the guiding for you, the guiding principle for behavior. And so that's what, I want to put that right up front, because we'll be talking more about that.
I want to ask you specifically about that, because there are I graduated with a degree in psychology. And so understanding why people do what they do is like kind of the foundation of that study. And I would argue that people have a philosophy already. They may or may not realize what it is. And like you might, because everybody has a reason for doing what they do. And sometimes those reasons are not conscious. Sometimes those are just ingrained into, how we were taught when we grew up, or what we believed, or where we were born even. So I would propose that people need to take control of the philosophy of their life consciously, or the subconscious philosophy that already exists in their life is going to determine the decisions that they make and the kind of life that they live. Do you think that's a fair statement?
You could have said it better. It's 100% statement. And so that's why I opened up with it, because I want people to understand, and you said it better than I did in that part where you said you already have it. Okay. The point I'm trying to get across is if you let life determine what your philosophies are, you can't help but go down a negative pathway. And this is why you'll find greatness in people, or people who take control of their philosophy. Again, philosophy is everything you know. Okay, those are the books you read, the seminars you listen to, the events you go to. It's the information you put into you. If you're putting positive information, you start forming positive philosophies. Okay, now one of the biggest one about your philosophies will be those you associate with, laws of association. You cannot have a positive outlook, a positive philosophy, positive guiding if the 5 people you associate with the most have a negative one. Okay, so again, it's a part of making sure you're consciously aware of what is it going into your incredible mind. See, your mind is 90% your subconscious. Your subconscious is a slave to your conscious brain. It doesn't know, it doesn't think, it does what it's told. Okay, and so in your brain right now, in your subconscious, is thousands of philosophies you might not be aware of that you're guiding your life about, but you can change those philosophies to positive ones that guide you towards what you do want. See, when you have good philosophies, that just immediately turns into a good attitude. And attitude is everything. I mean, and people hate hearing that, oh, I have a great attitude. No, really, do you have a good attitude about that? Because if you have a good philosophies, everything you know, what you've read, podcasts, people you're associated with, it's just create these positive philosophies. Let me give an example of philosophy. Successful people do what unsuccessful people are not willing to do. That's in my brain all the time. Always when I'm up against things, I see things going on. There's a lot of people saying it can't be done. I'm going, I can do it. Okay. Successful people do what unsuccessful people are not willing to do. I have thousands of those kind of philosophies in my brain. They're filters. Okay. That allows me to process the incoming that, in life. And so if you have good philosophies, that creates a good attitude. So that gives me a positive attitude about a difficult thing. Successful people do it, unsuccessful people are not willing to do. I have a positive outlook about a difficult thing that other people are not willing to do. No wonder I end up doing a lot of things that other people don't do. Not saying that I was better than them. I had a better philosophy. So if you have a good philosophy, that turns into the better actions, okay? The activity. And so you have to do the right activity, then you normally get the results from the activity. You get the results from the activity, you get the lifestyle. Here's what I see all the time, Dave. People are out there and things aren't working in whatever it might be. It could be their relationships in their family. It could be their business. It could be what their work, whatever it might be. And they're looking at the results and lifestyle, and they're saying it's not what I want. So they go beat up on the hows. It's the hows. You've got to go back to your philosophies. If the hows aren't working, it's because your philosophies that drive your hows are not right. See, if you have a good, like I said, that philosophy, it shifts into my attitude. Now the hows start to work. See, it's not the hows. Matter of fact, everybody's always asking you, just tell me how to do it. And I always go, if it was that easy, we would just tell you how to do it. Now, of course, we give people instructions. Of course, you do that, okay? But it's not the hows, it's how you do the hows. How you do the hows is the philosophy. It's the outlook, okay? And what's the beautiful thing about this is not something that you can't control. I'm not asking you got to invest $500,000, okay, be successful. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying you had to graduate from this incredible university. I'm not saying you have to have this education. I'm saying you have to have a good philosophy. A philosophy comes everything you know, books you read. Now, if you read negative books, guess what you're going to get? Negative philosophy. I sit around friends and they talk about these crazy TV shows they watch on Netflix and binge watch. And I'm thinking to myself, what are you doing? I go, if you need to release and let go sometimes, great. But are you counterbalancing that with at least as much positive information? I mean, if you got to go watch this series that's just crazy, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, are you going to balance it out with stuff that makes you think different, make you think better? So it's not hard to be better than the masses, because the masses is following the bouncing ball of society. And I hate to tell you this, but the media knows this. They know what you're attracted to, so they give it to you. Negativity. It builds your philosophy. It affects your attitude. And all of a sudden, you're not good at doing the hows, okay? It's a very simple thing. And so if you understand that, it's one of the most empowering things you can imagine, Dave, for me. Because I have all these different philosophies. I have another philosophy that says, quit wanting what you don't want. Because what I've always found is people always complain about this isn't working because, and I'm going, but think of the reverse side of that. If that never happened, and it was always the opposite, which is what you're praying for, would the opportunity still be there? Nope, probably not. It's the adversity that you have the right philosophy to deal with that gives you the results, and through the adversity that stops most other people. So when I run into things, I don't play this, the violin, go, oh, pity me, woe is this, is I quit wanting what you don't want. You don't want it to be perfect all the time and work all the time, because then there wouldn't be anything there for you, okay? That's a philosophy. See how that guides the way my attitude is, how it guides the way I do the hows, and why I might get a different result out of my house and somebody else because they're living one. I'm saying to myself all the time, successful people do and unsuccessful people are not willing to do. Quit wanting what you don't want. I got tons of these. I should write a book on them, okay? But that is a philosophy, okay? And that's what makes things work. And again, it's one of the most empowering thing because you have absolute control of it. You have a conscious brain that tells your subconscious brain what you want. And when you program it through this words, thoughts like that, they exist in there. And what that subconscious brain does, it doesn't sleep. It works 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. It is a slave to your conscious brain. It is a slave to your philosophies. It's a slave to them. And when it's there and understands those from you, it will stop blocking the things that don't serve you, and it'll let in the things that do serve you. So look at the philosophy kind of like the gateway to the programming, like a computer that's going to affect your decision-making in life, okay? And so don't just be, I'm one with the world, because guess what? You're going to be not good. You got to consciously have philosophies that let your subconscious brain know how you want to live your life. And these are these like little programs put into a computer, and it just starts working for you all the time. And it works when you don't even know it's working, because it becomes part of you more than anything else. And so again, back to it's something you got to be aware of and focus on, because this is your secret weapon. This is what puts you ahead of 95% of the people, because they don't even think about this at all. And it's so powerful. And it's, in my opinion, it's so obvious.
For sure. I think for people like you, and you've been living this philosophy, lots of these philosophies that have guided you, and you've done a lot of incredible things in your life. For our new listeners, maybe who don't know, Jeff's done some things that literally have not been done in business, and you can learn more about that by listening to our episodes. But for me, I remember clearly kind of an epiphany, if you could call it an epiphany. But I remember early in my career having, like, I was the no guy. Like, new ideas would come up and I could always figure out reasons why they wouldn't work or shouldn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one day thinking, that's backwards. Like, I should be thinking, like, why, like, how can we make this work? Then we can decide, should we make this work? But I remember and I don't know why or how that kind of sparked, but I do remember clearly, like, when that shift in my thinking occurred, and it's made a huge difference. So for our listeners, and you said this, like you said, you've got to be aware of your philosophies. How do you do that? Like, how do you, first of all, how do you identify if you have a positive or negative philosophy? And then how do you change it?
First of all, I think if you just let it be, it's going to be negative. It's just, that's how the world's set up. I'm not trying to be negative myself here, but that's how your brain's wired. People don't understand this thing called the reticulator in your brain that literally focuses on negative and it overrides focuses on positive. Okay. Same reason why we do Live Happy. It is to get people focused on happiness and how quite honestly, it's easy to live a happy life if you focus on it. Okay. And so I think the first thing is become aware of it. And that's what we're doing here. We're increasing your awareness. I've always used an example of awareness and accessibility. You take a child in Africa and he's aware of books. Okay. He wants to read. That's great. You got a child who wants to read. He's aware of them, but there is no access to books. Because the second thing to awareness is always access. Okay. And so you got to make yourself available to it. So I just really get frustrated when I see people who do not read positive information here, in the United States, because there's a kid somewhere over in another side of the world. They would give anything to have positive books to read. And you, because you have the dignity of choice, aren't even doing it when this is all that person wants. And so the point I'm trying to get across is, this is all about awareness. When you have awareness, you got to go to access. You got to access it. And access is quite, to a certain degree, kind of like a philosophy, because you're now telling yourself you're open to it. As soon as you're telling yourself you're open to it, it's almost going to be like that car that you bought that you never seen before. Now you see it everywhere you go, because it will shift everything. Affirmations in a kind of an indirect way are a philosophy. Most people don't say affirmations that are negative. I haven't seen too many negative. I haven't even seen one negative affirmation. Okay, but I'm sure there's somebody out there who's doing one. But most affirmations are positive thought about the future, right? Well, that's kind of like a philosophy, a positive thought about the future. Now that might be a feeling. Philosophy is usually something you know and how it affects what you do. But even having a positive outlook about the future, almost like a prayer. Prayer is a philosophy to a certain degree. It's something you know, how you hold it, how it affects what you do. When you put it out there, you are forming the way you think. You're forming the philosophy. And so I think it all starts, Dave, more than anything else, with awareness. Okay. The Slight Edge that some of you may have listened to on this podcast, and it's a blessing, a book that I got to write that's gone very organic and exploded around the world, is a philosophy. And the reason I think that book has gotten so big, because it was never been marketed. It's been done by word of mouth, because it spoke to a simple philosophy that everybody knew but didn't pay attention to. And that's a key word. You knew it. I told you what you already know, but you just weren't paying attention to already know, because you're distracted by all that other stuff. And all that is, when you get in your head the Slight Edge philosophy, all of a sudden, all the little things that seem to not matter. And all of a sudden you start doing them persistently, and eventually you get the compounded effect. Okay. But if you don't have that philosophy, the little things that don't matter, you just cast them aside, because in the moment they don't matter. And that's what that book was all about. And it's a philosophy. Now, what is a slight edge? It's, doing the little things that seem to make no difference at all in the act of doing them over and over and over until the compound effect kicks in. There's way more to that, but it's a simple philosophy. It really is the anti-quantum leap philosophy. Say most people try and mislead you into business opportunities you should never put yourself into. Will always come to, when I see quantum leap, I run. I turn and run as fast as I can as quantum leap, because to me, that's a negative philosophy. That is not how life works. There is a natural harmony in life. You can consider that philosophy. You plant seeds, you cultivate, and you harvest. Okay, that's what the book is. It's anti-quantum leap. So I'm giving examples as I speak here, because they're a thought process, that gives it the guiding, like I said when I wrote that, the guiding principles to how you live your life or your organization lives its life. And so again, long answer to a simple question. That's what this is all about, is shifting your awareness. If you shift your awareness and just put it in your head, I'm now aware of the philosophies, the thoughts that are guiding my things, the guiding principles are guiding my behaviors, that alone will start changing you. You'll immediately start, negative Joe over there. You say, whoa. I'm not letting you put that into me. Okay. That show over there. Okay. I'll watch it some, but I'm going to counterbalance with this good show over here. You might want to read a trashy magazine, fine, but am I going to read a good thing that shows me how to think and live life better and be a better person? It's balancing those things. And so it all starts with awareness. Okay. And the other thing great about it is your philosophy really is access. Okay. I use that example that kid, he doesn't have access to a book. Okay. Because he's physically stuck in a country where they don't have access. I use that example, but quite honestly, your philosophy will determine the things that you access. Okay. If you think reading good books is important and you make that a philosophy in your life, you'll create access. If you don't, you won't create access. It's amazing. So, to a certain degree, as you become aware of things and you shift your philosophy, it becomes the key, the access point, the trigger point, the thing that gets you to that information. And this is the most incredible thing that God gave you, your subconscious brain, go to work on your behalf.
Yeah, I love that. And for me, I know some people might be able to relate to this, but I think there's kind of this constant battle in your own mind, right? Of the like, do what's easy versus do what I know I should do. And you'll sometimes get these ideas that pop into your head and you're like, that's a really, really good idea. I should do that. And then almost immediately, at least for me, and I know for some other people I've talked to about this, for almost immediately after that, you'll hear another voice in your head that's like, no, you shouldn't do that. And here's why. And it's kind of like you were talking about. It's like the mind is kind of automatically protecting itself from potential harm or danger or whatever. And unfortunately, I think there's risk in being better. Like there's risk in doing something different than I did yesterday. But if it means I can be a better version of myself, yeah, of course, I need to take those risks. I need to take those steps out of my comfort zone in order to follow that philosophy through and let it change my behavior on a day-to-day basis.
When you change your philosophy, you start changing who you are. Okay, it's that simple. And one of the big things I said is laws of association, the people you associate with, because they are forming your philosophy. And I love what Jim Rohn said once. He said, there's some people you used to spend 2 days with, now you should only spend 2 hours with. And there's people you used to spend 2 hours with, and you should probably only spend 2 minutes with now. And there's people you spent 2 minutes with, you probably shouldn't even spend time with. He goes, but on the other side, there's people you're not spending time with, you probably should spend 2 minutes with. There's people you're spending 2 minutes with, you probably should spend 2 hours with. There's people you're spending 2 hours with, you probably should be spending 2 days with. Long way to just say, be aware of who you're associating with, because they can have as much impact on your philosophies and attitude, which impact your house, as anybody. Okay. And so, yes, when you, as you say, Dave, when you start making these decisions, sometimes you find yourself to a certain degree in resistance. Okay. Resistance internally and resistance externally. Back to the Slight Edge book, I'm not here pumping it, but the Slight Edge is really a series of a bunch of philosophies that come together. One of the things I say in that book is everything you need to do to be successful is easy. But guess what? You said you thought something was easy, but guess what? It's easy not to do. Anything that's easy, and it's usually everything you need to do to be successful to a certain degree is easy. but it's easy not to do. You don't think it matters. Okay. And so, but all of a sudden, when you have that right philosophy and you start focusing on those things, people will start taking notice. But the beautiful thing about it, this becomes your light. This becomes your energy. It becomes your source. It really does. And you become attractive. People want to be around people who have positive philosophies, outlook on life. They want to be around people who have a positive attitude on life. They want to be around people when they approach the house or doing them in a positive way. Okay. But in doing so, there will be people that will resist that, resent that. And that just is that that just is. Okay. It comes with, but I tell you what, the other side of that coin is so much more beautiful than that side of the coin, because the other side is those people who encourage it. Those are the people who are helping you evolve even more. The people who are affecting your life, the books that are affecting your life, the seminars that are affecting your life in a positive way. And all of a sudden you become a better worker, you become a better entrepreneur, become a better parent, you become a better spouse, you become a better friend. You start making better decisions about your finances, you start making better decisions all around your life. That well, you can't do that without having the right philosophy, because it is like the rudder or the sail in a boat, however you want to look at it, that's going to take you to where you want to go. You have a negative philosophy, you're going to go to the wrong place. Okay. And so, but back to your point, your simple point there, Dave, is you thought it didn't matter, but it matters, and that's where it's important, because you don't have a philosophy that this matters. Don't have a philosophy that you just let it drift away, because your subconscious mind has been getting programmed for a long time. When you consciously start trying to program your conscious mind, you're got to clean the trash out. There's a lot of trash cleaned out. Okay, you got to make room for this positive thinking. Okay, and so this doesn't happen overnight, but you will start seeing the difference. And we've learned in the Live Happy movement. There's somebody just starts doing gratitudes, 3 gratitudes a day, and they do it for 21 days. It changes the neurons, the way they're firing the brain. This is clinical stuff. This is not me. This is science that shows that. And in 21 days, you can take a grumpy old man and turn into a more positive person. And what's really cool about that, if you quit doing it on the 21st day, 6 months later, you still have the effect. But you got to get that repetitive process. So I'm saying that to say this. You say you say it was easy. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. This is when you find out who you are. Because you got to consciously, that's why I open up, this is a conscious decision to start philosophically looking at the world, being aware what's affecting my thinking, understand that I'm putting this in my head. It will be the quiet thing guiding my thought process, and so it does matter. So like you said, Dave, I saw something that's easy, it really doesn't matter, or I'm getting resistance to it. That's when you're in the right place to a certain degree. Okay. And that's natural, very natural. And that's why most people, when I say people are living a philosophical life, and I mean, I don't want to be negative, but the majority aren't. Okay. Majority are living a life of basically what society wants them to be more than anything else. And then they wonder why they aren't getting ahead of society, because you became one with it. And again, it's not like this is something you have to have a lot of money to do. It will lead to a lot of money. It's not like something you have a lot of material things. It can lead to a lot of material things, but without it, you will never get there. Okay. And that is what most people who have success have, is they are guided by philosophies. They allow them to make good decisions and do the hows the right way.
For sure. I think that's one thing that, well, and even those of us like you and me and people who are consciously trying to improve our philosophies, trying to think positively, grow positively, we still have our own biases. We still have our own baggage that sometimes we don't even realize is there. And we have, like you said, you have to address that. You have to understand that and then take care of it. I want to go back to something you said, because this is something I 100% believe in. And you talk about it consistently, which is, who you surround yourself with, like who are the people that you are around. Because, I was very fortunate in my career. Like early on, I was around some brilliant, successful people that really opened my eyes to possibilities that I really hadn't even considered before that. And so since then, I've always taken that advice. I've always tried to surround myself with people who are the kind of people that I look up to, the kind of people that do the kind of things that I want to do in life. I'm curious, in your life, you're one of those people for a lot of folks. Like, people would love to spend time with you because of who you are, what you've done. And I'm curious if do you have certain things that you look for in the people you surround yourself with, or are there certain people you like to model after, or like, because that is such an important thing. How do you determine who those people are?
it kind of evolves in its own terms to a certain degree, because everybody comes to the table as their unique individual, unique person. Obviously, you're looking for people who have the capabilities, okay? But that's not really the final thing, because I think that can evolve. But you don't want to put, like they say, don't put a square peg in a round hole. You don't want somebody coming, you're building an organization. When you build an organization, all an organization is, a corporation is a group of people who are coming together around a common goal. That's all they are. And you as a leader, your goal is to keep them work synergistically. Synergistically is where they go someplace together they couldn't go to by themselves. And so, the best, when you're building a company, one of the greatest things I heard an interview, they are interviewing this person, and he was asked, man, all your employees are so positive and having such a good outlook on life, great attitude. Why is that? He goes, because we hire people with a good outlook and a good attitude. Okay. But the point is, yeah, it's something, but it's right back to if you're consciously aware of that, it shows up. It's pretty obvious. I've always said, when a person walks in the room, they brighten the room, they dim the room. They really do. And that's usually a person who has a great philosophy. In the Aura, we launched with 10 core values. There really are 10 core philosophies. Okay. And these were printed up. They've been put in all of our manuals. Their stewards all of our employees get this. It's part of our process of the company. And I'll just read these to you, but these are simple core philosophies that we use as the thought process to build a company. So, when I go through these, you kind of go, well, when a person walks in for an interview, or a person you're associating, I'm just as an example, do they fall into these categories very well? And the first one is be real. And we made that a big thing, that we're going to be real science, real results, real opportunity, attracting real people, creating real lives. Be determined. Okay. That sounds cute, but, be determined. Is that person determined? Okay. Create a positive team and family atmosphere. This is something we want to do, and something we have done very, 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 very well. Dream big and act on it daily. This is about have a long vision, but don't get lost in the vision. Do the things today that are going to get you there. Okay. Embrace and drive change. Simple thing. But is this a person who embraces and drives change? Or is this, some people run away from change. Okay. Change is an enemy. We want to see change as an opportunity. Actually, I think in our market today, what we do, we have a bigger opportunity we've ever had, because the change is so dynamic. And I need people around me to embrace that and embrace that change. Encourage an entrepreneurial spirit. Okay. Is this person got an entrepreneurial mindset? Okay. That's a philosophy. Now you're starting to see the kind of person you want to be around as far as in our company. Have fun, help others have fun. There's always got to be the light side to it, enjoying of each other, bantering, that type of thing. Practice servant leadership. That's something we do with our Ripple Foundation, giving back. Are these kind of people who do that in their faith? Or this kind of people who do that in their family? Okay. Pursue constant development of self. That's personal development. Working on yourself. What are the books they read? Are the people they associate? And then my favorite one is slow down to go fast. People don't understand this, do it right the first time, because that's the fastest way. I went through all those 10, not to say those are yours. But your question, without you're asking the perfect question for this, Dave, was what are you looking for? Well, what you're looking for is what your philosophies are. If your philosophies are over here, you're not going to be looking for. You got to be looking for people over here that are in alignment with your philosophies. People who philosophically see the world the way you do, or people who they might not say it in the way you say it. They might not have it as you demonstrate it as well as you do. But when you're around them, you go, we're kind of cut from the same cloth, birds of a feather flock together. You get that sense, okay? What you don't want is a person that just totally is an outlier from you, okay? That sounds wrong, okay? But I really believe in this synergy of people coming together. And I believe when you come together around a philosophical foundation, that you have the ability for you to build something of significance is much greater, because that's important. Because what's great about a philosophy, and I'm going to kind of go off on a sidebar here, Dave. See, when everybody always wants to know how to do it, that never works, because guess what? The world changes. I mean, even our industry we're in right now is going through probably the most dramatic changes it's been through in 100 years. It's probably going to do more changes in the next 5 years than it's done in the last 50 years. Okay. Dramatic changes, dramatic. And if you're stuck on the how it was done, you're done. You're done. And it is changing that dramatic. You got to be focused on how you approach it. See, the same philosophies though we did to build it in the old environment will be the same philosophies we use to build it in the new environment. But the hows we did in the old environment won't work in the new environment. So it's not the hows, okay? It's the philosophy. Philosophies are transferable, is what I'm trying to say. They're green. They go forward forever. They move with you from situation to situation. When the world changes, the dynamics change, the marketplace changes. The paradigm shifts in your industry, like it's happening in ours, change. Your philosophies take you right through it. But if you don't have the right philosophies, guess what? You don't have the thought process in place to adapt to the new environment. And that's why I'm excited, because that's why I know our company is so well positioned to not just survive, but thrive in these changes, because we are philosophically driven people who will adapt to the new times and won't hang on to the old hows, because this is how it always was done. No, it's not the hows. It's how you do the hows. And it's a new hows now. And how you do the hows, you can easily transfer because you do it with the same philosophies. The philosophies just evolve over time and go forward all the
time. That is a great point, and I hope everybody was taking notes on that one, because the philosophies, I kind of like, if you think about it this way, like the philosophies are the why, but the how can be flexible. The how can change, like how you accomplish what you want to accomplish. Like, I mean, everybody knows, like 10 years ago, that looked very different than how it looks today. And 10 years from now, it's going to look different than how it looks today as well. But the philosophy underlying, which is the why, then, that can remain constant, and that can be your guiding principle of improvement. I think that is a point that I think hopefully everybody listening took that to heart, because I think that gives us encouragement that, we're on to something here. In a very tumultuous world where lots of stuff is changing, and we, it's hard to predict what's going to be happening a year from now. Any parting thoughts on philosophies? Like, where do you start? Like, I'm listening to this podcast, I want to make changes. What's my first step?
Well, again, back to one of the best speakers I always liked was Jim Rohn, because he was very philosophical. Okay. And he used to have people come to him because he was very wise, because he was philosophical. And people always come to him with their problems. That's what people do. They go to people they think are wise with their problems. His first question, well, okay, on that problem, you get him to define it. He says, what are the 3 books you've read about that problem? And he goes, the answer was always none. And he always would say, well, that's a bad number. Take inventory of what you're doing to affect your philosophy. What is it you're reading? What podcasts you're listening to this one? I already applaud you for that, but what other good ones are out there for you? What seminars, what people you're associating with? What are your philosophies? Okay. If I ask you to write down 10 philosophies that guide your thought process, could you do that? Okay. That's where you start. You just start right there. The cool thing about it is it grows exponentially. Okay. It doesn't go 1 + 1 = 2. It goes 1 + 1, 4, 4 plus. It grows fast, because once you get philosophical, your thought process becomes so much more expanded. You start attracting more in. So it moves pretty darn fast, quite honestly. But, it's a very simple thing is start right where you're at. The other thing you got to know in doing this, success is a very lonely journey. I don't mean it's like you're a lonely person. I mean, most of the things you do to be successful in life, you do when you're by yourself. You do when nobody's watching. We see on TV these grandiose statements, and in the boardroom, and the music, and every this guy says this incredible thing. That's not how it works. Okay. Success, most of the things that are going to be successful, you're doing, nobody's even watching. Okay. But who is watching is your philosophy. That is there. You're by yourself. You're in the moment. You're making decisions, okay? And if you don't have a good guiding philosophy, you won't make the right decisions. And you got to understand, 80%, 90%, the things you do when nobody's watching. You can kind of get away with doing whatever you want, but you lean into your philosophies, okay? And so I guess I'm trying to say is start where you're at, take honest inventory of what you're doing about it, and realize most of the work you're going to be doing by yourself. Alone. Okay. But again, I'm also empowering you. You don't need another person to do it. See what I'm saying? You don't have to do that. You don't need anybody else. You can start doing it yourself. You do want to be aware of who you associate with. Of course, that's part of the process, but it's right where you're at, knowing that you don't need anything else, other than you to make it happen and start the process. And it's an amazing thing. And I want to kind of finish on this quick story, and we do what you want, Dave, here. But you've heard this before from me once here, but I want to tell it again because I think my daughter, who I think is really great. Okay, but with that said, of course, it's my daughter. I'm gonna say that, but she was a very top of her high school. Okay, in grades, top, and graduating, went to a very good university. We go there. The dean of students says, "Congratulations, your kids are the best of the best. They have to be straight A's. They get into here. They have to be the top of their SAT." And she looked at me when we went to dinner that night. Wow, what am I going to do? Because she just went from top 1% to average. She was 50% because they're all like her. Okay. I said, don't worry. All you got to do and I just talked philosophically to her. You're going to show up to class every single day. You're going to study every single day. I just want I went through philosophically how you approach everything. Because I said, don't worry, these kids aren't to do that. And you're thinking like, these are the best of the best. Well, 3 weeks later, she's saying, guess what? These kids, freshman class start out 300, we're down to 50. We haven't taken a test yet. I said, the problem is these kids, their parents left their home where they had structure, but now they're on the road by themselves where their structure is their brain, which is the way they think, which is their philosophy. Their parents let them go to school without a philosophy. You're here with one. And she graduated 4 years later on time, cum laude, a great business school. Was she smarter than those kids? No, they're all A's. Okay. She had a philosophy. That was the greatest gift we gave her. Greatest gift we gave her because when other kids were making bad decisions, she was making good decisions. It was a simple philosophy, but it was a big results. Okay. I think it's a great example of how, regardless of where you're at, how you can break away from the masses just by some simple thought processes and philosophies.
Yeah, I love that. And I've heard that story, but every time I hear that story, I think it is a valuable story. People can take just the value in that story is obvious. Like the philosophy is there. You follow the philosophy and you do the things you got to do. You end up where you want to be. Right. So I think, great conversation today, Jeff. Always a pleasure. I think people, if you're tuning in today, you got a lot of value out of this podcast. Lots of cool things. Start where you're at. Take honest evaluation of what you're doing. And is it the philosophy that you want? And if not, make some changes. I think ultimately it kind of boils down to that. And, and then Jeff has given you a lot of ideas on how to do that. We'll be back in a week or 2 weeks with our next episode. Really looking forward to that as we talk about more content, more philosophy on how you can be built to win. So until next time, thanks for listening. Jeff, thank you. And we'll see you all next time.
Dave, great seeing you. Thanks, everybody. Y'all take care. Be blessed.
That was Dave Fleming talking with Jeff Olson about how your personal philosophy affects the results that you see in life. We hope you've enjoyed this episode, and if you learned something from it, please share it with a friend or colleague who you think would also benefit from it. And if you're new to Built to Win, we invite you to go back and listen to our story from the beginning. You can find us wherever you download your favorite podcast. And while you're there, be sure to subscribe, rate us, and leave a review to let us know what you think of the show.